In 1857, the most powerful empire on earth came terrifyingly close to collapse. Not in Europe, not in London, but in India. The British Empire, ruling millions with a relatively small army, was shaken by a mutiny so violent, so widespread, that British officials genuinely feared they would lose the entire subcontinent. What began as a soldiers' rebellion would soon become the greatest challenge the empire had ever faced. By the mid-19th century, the British East India Company controlled most of India. It was not a government, but a corporation backed by British military force. Indian soldiers, known as sepoys, made up the majority of the company's army. They were trained, disciplined, and loyal, until trust was broken. In early 1857, a new rifle was issued to sepoy regiments, the Enfield Pattern 1853. To load it, soldiers had to bite open a paper cartridge. Rumors spread quickly. The cartridges, it was said, were greased with cow fat and pig fat. For Hindu soldiers, cows were sacred. For Muslim soldiers, pigs were forbidden. British officers dismissed the concerns. Some laughed them off, others ignored them completely. But for the sepoys, this was not a minor issue. It was an attack on religion, identity, and honor. On March 29, 1857, at Barrackpore near Calcutta, a sepoy named Mangal Pandey snapped. He attacked British officers, urging others to rise up. The rebellion failed, and Pandey was arrested and executed on April 8th. British authorities believed the problem was over. They were dangerously wrong. On May 10, 1857, in the cantonment town of Meerut, 85 sepoys refused to use the cartridges. They were court-martialed and sentenced to 10 years in prison. That night, fellow soldiers rebelled. They killed British officers, freed the prisoners, and marched toward Delhi. Within hours, the mutiny became a revolution. When the rebels reached Delhi on May 11th, they proclaimed the aging Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar as the ruler of India. Though largely powerless, his name carried symbolic weight. The uprising spread like wildfire across northern and central India. British rule collapsed in vast regions almost overnight. In Kanpur, the rebel leader Nana Sahib seized control. In Lucknow, Begum Hazrat Mahal organized resistance. In Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai emerged as one of the most formidable leaders of the rebellion, personally leading troops into battle. For the British, the situation was catastrophic. Telegraph lines were cut, roads were unsafe, entire garrisons were wiped out. European civilians were besieged, trapped, and killed. News reaching Britain was fragmentary and horrifying. One of the most infamous episodes occurred in Kanpur. After a siege, British men, women, and children were promised safe passage. As they boarded boats on June 27, 1857, gunfire erupted. Many were killed. Survivors were later murdered. The event shocked Britain and fueled calls for brutal retaliation. By the summer of 1857, the British Empire was fighting for survival. Reinforcements were rushed from Britain, Persia, and China. Sikh and Gurkha troops, who did not join the rebellion, became critical to British counterattacks. Slowly, painfully, the empire began to strike back. Delhi was retaken in September 1857 after weeks of brutal street fighting. Bahadur Shah Zafar was captured and later exiled to Burma, ending the Mughal dynasty forever. Lucknow fell in March 1858. Jhansi was captured after fierce resistance. Rani Lakshmibai died in battle in June 1858, becoming a lasting symbol of resistance. The British response was merciless. Suspected rebels were executed without trial. Villages were burned. Prisoners were blown from cannons, an old Mughal punishment revived as a warning. The violence scarred the land and the memory of both sides. By July 1858, the rebellion was officially crushed. But the British Empire had been changed forever. The East India Company was dissolved. Rule over India passed directly to the British Crown. Queen Victoria promised religious tolerance and an end to aggressive interference in Indian traditions. The army was reorganized to prevent Indian soldiers from ever uniting like that again. What the British called the Sepoy Mutiny, Indians would later call the First War of Independence. And here is the irony. The rebellion failed militarily. British rule continued for nearly 90 more years. But the fear it created never disappeared. It forced reforms. It planted the idea that British power was not invincible. In trying to silence India, the empire had awakened it. And the mutiny that nearly ended the British Empire ensured that one day it truly would.